Hi, kitchen. You see, you're such a cute kitty. Such a cute kitty, aren't you? I decided to make a video on something today that's quite a bit more current than what I usually do. And before I start, I want to say that I really like the Amazing Digital Circus. I think it's wonderful. It's clear there's a lot of effort and time and planning going into this. And I really love the way it came out mostly. And I think everybody should go watch it before they watch this video. And I will leave a link in the description because it is free on YouTube. There's no reason why you should watch this video without having watched the original. Go support the creators of it because this was a show made on a massive scale. This episode was made on a massive scale for being an independent show available on YouTube for free. So, with that out of the way, let me say also that everything I'm going to say is out of me wanting to see the show improve and grow as it continues after this pilot. So, with all of that being said, let's just get into it. So obviously if you watched it, you know what the Amazing Digital Circus is. It's around a 24-minute long pilot for a TV show available on YouTube. It's 3D animated. I want to talk about what I like about it first, instead of going right into the critiques, because I think there's a lot to love about this. I really love the visuals. I think the visual style is quite good. The art style, there's something missing to me that I can't place my finger on, but it's such a minimal thing that it's just, I disregard it. It's a great art style. It's so bright and clean, and that plays in so well with the story. Also, I love the animation. The animation looks great. It's super cartoonish, it's expressive, it's fun to watch. I think the character designs are really fun. I think the characters are fun as well. I like how they've been introduced so far. I like the story a lot, too. I think it's interesting that it takes influence from I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream, which obviously that influence is put into a much different context than the original story, but I think it still works, and the story is still very separate from the original work that it was inspired by. And I like that a lot. I think it works on its own. I like the overall ideas presented in the episode. Like, I love the way they characterize Pomni throughout. I think that overall, this is a pretty good base for a show. And I don't want what I'm going to say to undermine that in any way, because this is a very good starting point. But with that said, I do have a couple issues with the way the episode is actually structured. So I kind of want to get into that. I have some notes over here, obviously. So to me, this does not feel like the pilot episode of a TV show. This feels like the first act of a movie. At least what's set up. So I kind of want to illustrate what I mean So I'm going to talk about a different pilot for a TV show. One of my favorite shows of all time, it's Community. Now, Community's pilot sets up the show really well. What it does is it introduces... I'm not going to go over the whole plot of the pilot. Just go watch it if you really want to. Also, Community is just a great show. But anyways, the whole thing with the pilot is that there's a lot of key ideas introduced in it that go across the entire show and are expanded upon and have a lot of movement, where a lot can change or a lot can be detailed within that. I'm just going to go over a couple of them right now. Jeff Winger is a selfish douchebag who does whatever he can to reach his goals. Greendale is a strange school with an even stranger student population. The study group somehow stays together at the end of an episode, and there will always be unnecessary romance plot lines. And obviously, these are all pretty well introduced in the first episode. However, they're also really well expanded upon later on. For instance, Jeff slowly learns how to love the study group. Most of this development is shown over season 1. However, you can continue to see it through the following 5 seasons. And in the school, we get a look at all of the strange classes, the strange teachers, the strange employees, the dean, the students. We get to see all of it and how kind of weird it all is. I think that works really well in its favor. that we kind of get to see all of that instead of it just being a backdrop. It is really a part of the show, and I really adore that. We see the study group's dynamic change and shift. Even when members of the study group leave and switch out, it still feels like the study group. I think I love seeing that because it shows some level of sustainability with the way the show is written, that it can still work even when key cast members have to leave, like Pierce and Troy not being in the show anymore because Chevy Chase is a terrible person and Donald Glover's kind of became, well, everything he is now. Oh, and also we see love interests shift and change and all of that, but I don't like the way romance is done in Community. So, all of these concepts that were in the pilot were very good to expand upon later. However, my issue with Digital Circus is that the things it introduces in the pilot don't really feel like they have much more movement. Like, it doesn't really feel like there's much more that can be expanded upon in the time that a full show would run. So let me go over some of the concepts in Digital Circus. Pomni and the rest of the immediate circus members are real people who are trapped in this digital world. All of them want to get out, but the other members have been trapped long enough to know there isn't any way to escape. Abstraction is something that can happen with too much complex thought of leaving. Pomni needs to get used to being around the circus members. Kane is the puppet master of all of this, and the exit is most likely somewhere in the void. There was a lot introduced in this first episode. I like that. However, the issue is too much of it can't be expanded upon that well. I mean, there are some things that can be better. For instance, Pomni being more introduced to the circus members and kind of learning how to be around them and their dynamics shifting as Pomni becomes more ingrained with their activities. I think that's an important one that can I think that will be the main thing that's developed on. We'll see more of the circus members and we'll see more of Pomni interacting with them in the later episodes. That's what I predict will happen. But other things, like, most of these are just facts about the world. They aren't things that can really be expanded upon. Like, yeah, clearly there's a reason that Kane doesn't want the circus members to go into the void, because they either might leave or might get hurt. We don't know too much about Kane's motivations yet, and that is something that really can be expanded upon too. I think we will see a lot with Kane in the later episodes, and a lot of development there that will either make us sympathize with him more or hate him more. I don't think there's going to be really an in-between. But my thing is that it feels like the concept, as it is right now, could be completed with a movie. When I think of the idea of Community, when I think of the idea of Breaking Bad, when I think of the idea of Twin Peaks, from the pilot episode, those are shows that cannot feel like they would be completed with a movie. Those are shows that feel like they need at least a couple seasons to get through what they need to. And for this show, it doesn't feel like that. And I could be very wrong. Maybe the reason why I see all of these concepts in the first episode of Community is because I'm someone who has watched the whole show multiple times. And I can recognize that. And maybe because there have been concepts that haven't been fleshed out yet, it doesn't feel like there's much movement with what it introduces. And I will admit, I could very much be wrong. I really could be. Alright, so the next thing I have here is the actual physical structure of the episode. So as I mentioned, the episode is 24 minutes long. And my thing is, I think when you're creating something that is meant to be enjoyed as a show, you should try to keep yourself within standard limits. Or at least some kind of limit. Because that breeds creativity. So what do I mean by this? With the show Arrested Development, which again is one of my all-time favorite shows, we see that each episode's 22 minutes long because the standard length of a half-hour slot of television with commercials the episode should be about 22 minutes long to give about 8 minutes for commercial breaks. So, with Arrested Development, the issue is that a lot of cutting down had to be done to get the episodes to be complete. And what this does is it makes an episode that feels more concise, and it feels like it gets the point across better. It's almost more potent in that way. Because, I mean, what, do you want to watch an episode where there's like 3 extra minutes of nothing that contributes to the plot? Or just extra details? Or do you want something that really gets straight to it? And I think with a show like this, especially where it's not trying to be this long, drawn-out drama, but it's meant to be kind of a more fast-paced cartoon sitcom type thing, it should, I mean, not a sitcom at all, it's a dark comedy, but still, it should be more condensed. So, I think the time slot that this show should aim for is that 11-minute Cartoon Network double episode and a half-hour slot episode length. Why do I think this? The episode is 24 minutes long. Well, Infinity Train is a show that has covered a lot in one season. That covers a lot in one season, which again, this is one of my all-time favorite shows. My favorite animated show. And what it does is it kind of creates these single lines of plot that can be in one episode. So each episode kind of feels like a quick burst of the show, and you can kind of continue to the next. And why I bring this up is because this episode, besides introducing Pomni and having her learn about the abstraction and having her learn about her environment, besides that, there's a B-plot. And it's really unnecessary. It's about, like, the rest of the gang who isn't with Pomni kind of investigating this thing that Kane put out that, like, dismantled... I can't remember the character names right now, I'm sorry. That dismantled one of the characters, and they're trying to figure that out and go down, like, a pit to reassemble her. And my issue with this is it's too much to put in one episode. I think if you want to introduce the show, stick with the Pomni storyline. If when you cut out that B-plot, it's not 11 minutes, then that's when you start to detail it. That's when you start to add to it. But the way it is, it feels a little bit bloated because there's this kind of unnecessary B-plot happening concurrent to the much more, like, serious and pressing and important A-plot. And I think the idea should be, don't try to make an A and a B-plot. I think if you have an idea for a B-plot, I would be fine with saying, hey, here's a filler episode. Because imagine it was formatted in a way where 11 minutes, we are introduced to Pomni, and it's the storyline with the abstraction, and containing that, and her going out into the void and trying to escape. And it has the same ending with the bomb-ass music and the fantastic ending. So what if we take that and we make it one 11-minute episode, and the next 11-minute episode is whatever this B-plot is. But this time, Pomni is involved with it. And she's learning how to kind of fit herself into the dynamic of the group. And kind of learning how this world works further as she's kind of getting used to that she has to be here. In my opinion, that would work a lot better. I think they tried to fit a lot into this episode because it's the first impression of the show. But in retrospect, it's going to be too much as the show continues on. And again, maybe I'll be wrong. Maybe they will make B-plots work very well in later episodes. Maybe they will use the length of their episodes correctly and get the pacing down better. But for this pilot episode, it doesn't feel like it got it down exactly. And that's it. This is kind of a short video, but I just kind of want to get these thoughts out. And I want to say, this is still a great start for a show. It really is. It sets up a lot of key concepts that I can tell will be expanded upon. It's just, I'm not sure how well it'll work with the later episodes, but I'm sure they'll figure out a way to change some of these things, or even expand upon it, and I just don't see that yet. Because obviously this show is in its infancy. This is literally the first episode. So there is a lot to go off of, and I expect this show to continue to be very good. I really do. I loved the pilot, and I think that There's a lot of talented people working on it. I think that no matter what, this will still be a very enjoyable show, and it'll be very worth watching. So, thanks for watching. I'll come back eventually. I'm working on some big projects right now, so that's quite busy, but this is different. I'm not talking about video games this time, and I enjoy that. So thank you for listening to my rant about this cartoon series that isn't a series yet. And, yep, I'm done.